Shipping is one of the oldest industries in the world and a major driver of trade. Therefore, one needs to be abreast to understand the market as it is disciplinary and of high risk. My name is Jacqueline Favor Asase. I'm super excited to welcome you to another thrilling episode of Port and Maritime Agenda. Before we delve into today's discussion, we're taking a quick break. We'll be right back.
The Consolidated Shipping Agencies Limited, or CONSHIP for short, is a world-class Ghanaian logistics company formed in February 1996. It is based in Accra, Tema and Takoradi in Ghana, West Africa.
We've expanded our portfolio to offer services such as marine and husbandry services, onshore and offshore logistics services, projects, international freight forwarding services, and warehousing.
Today, due to its numerous partnerships, CONSHIP has a network over 2,000 locations globally from which it can do business. This enables the company to fulfill its prime goal of providing quick, efficient, and dependable services for its customers. The vision: succeeding together with passion.
Welcome back from the very quick break. If you just joined us, this is Port and Maritime Agenda, bringing you all the latest happenings in the maritime industry. My name is Jacqueline Favor Asase. He is a chartered logistician, a regional integration advocate, a social entrepreneur, the executive director of Tarzan Enterprise Limited. Joining us for the second time, Mr. Ziad Hamoui is my guest today on Port and Maritime Agenda. Hello, Mr. Ziad.
Hello.
Good
Welcome
to see
back.
you.
Good to see you too.
It's been a while.
Yeah, well.
How is everything?
It's been a challenging year, wasn't it?
Oh, yes.
People are just running around everywhere.
So how's the year been for you as we're wrapping up?
Oh, a very extraordinary year, I would say, with all ups and downs and challenges all across.
With the economic crisis and
a lot of things happening and going on. You have the good things, you have integration moving forward with AFTA and others, but you also have some of the political unrest around us, and then you have the shocks in the fuel, fertilizer, and food prices, and all that's happening and going on, and you have Ghana going through an episode at the moment, so it's been quite a ride. 2022 is
as the president said, this too shall pass, so we are hoping for the best in the coming years.
We should always keep the faith in these days.
So kicking start with our conversation, I would like to find out, is African import dependent?
So, in a sense, in a way, most of the African countries have something that some of us like to call as a colonial economy structure, where the countries which are rich in resources and minerals usually export these resources out of the country in raw form, or very little value added internally, locally. And then whatever is needed is being imported in finished form. And this creates something called a negative balance of trade, which means that you import in value more than you export. And then you have something called the negative balance of trade, and it affects you on the longer term in a way that you can't achieve more sustained economic growth in the longer term. So many countries across Africa have this problem. It doesn't have to do with the size of your economy. You can be a large economy, you can be a small economy, you can have a balance, negative balance of trade, or you can have a positive. And sometimes the same countries go through cycles. You can have negative balances of trade, and then you can have positive balances of trade. But overall, and over a period of time, I would say that many countries in Africa have an issue in being import dependent because they do not add enough value into the products and the material which they produce.
Okay. But why is import rate higher than export rate?
I'm not sure I get the question very well, but
a country's import rate.
Yes. When you say rate, you're talking about the amount involved, right?
Involved.
So, because look, your economy, your country is expanding, and when your country wants to expand and to develop, let's say, You need to improve on your infrastructure. The people who get higher incomes usually become more, consume much more, and then their preferences change into more sophisticated products, and then you have to import more of something that is more transformed, as we say in economy. It means you start to import more expensive things, and that way your import bill, as we call it, becomes bigger. In comparison, if you don't have a well-diversified economy where you produce and manufacture added value products, the gap between what you import and what you export continues to expand. And it doesn't matter how much more raw material or resources you export, because you might, for example, have gold, a lot of gold. You might have cocoa, diamond, bauxite, whatever it is. So let's say that you started from a small base with your economy, and you had so much in volumes that you were exporting, and then you are moving and expanding in a certain pace. And then you get to a point where no matter how much of that volume you are exporting in raw format, it cannot match the increases in the import demands. And so this has to do with the sustainability of the economic growth of the particular country. And so this is how I interpret when you say that the import rate is higher than the export rate. It means that many countries have not managed to match their growth rate by adding enough value into their manufacturing. And that one too is due to the fact that we do not, either we are unable to attract enough investment to build or develop our economies and to add value into our own local products, or in what I like to refer to as a hyper-globalized economy, where people
hyper-globalized.
Yes, in a way that people look for the cheapest products that they need in the markets, irrespective of where it comes from, and that is not necessarily the local product. So most of the time, the cheapest product is not the local product. And this causes a situation where people get price-oriented in a way where it becomes harmful for your economy that is developing, especially if you have young economies, young industries in certain areas where you can develop capacities in case you manage to invest enough adequately inside. But because of the flooding of your markets with the cheaper products, irrespective of the value or the quality of these products, but the price is competing with your local manufacturing and production. And so in that way, you are harming yourself as an economy at the expense of a happier consumer. So a happier consumer is not necessarily related to a thriving economy. And that is the tragedy of things.
Okay. But concerns have been raised by some Ghanaians that our locally produced goods are more expensive than those we import. What's your take on that?
Look, I think that we have grown very used to buying the cheapest product irrespective of where it comes from, and that there is low patronage for local manufactured goods. However, at the same time, I believe that several countries have given us examples and case studies about how not to go around in protecting our industries. There are countries that decided that, look, we are going to produce what we need and we will stop the importation of certain products because we wanted to grow our economies. But then they did it in the wrong way, and they ended up encouraging smuggling at the borders and encouraging corruption in certain areas without addressing the structural defects about building your manufacturing. What many African countries need is a sustainable industrial policy, not a trade policy, an industrial policy, which means a policy on a national level that addresses the deficiencies in the areas where this country is capable of developing its economies, in particular values, and then enforcing this economy and then encouraging investment in areas that supplement this industrial policy. So it's a complicated issue. First of all, there's a policy level where the policymakers and the government agencies should sit together to determine what are the products that we can be competitive at the moment, and then what do we want to develop as a nation in moving towards the future, and then what is it that we can do to encourage people or organizations to invest in our countries in particular areas so that they can add value locally to our products in a way that grows our economy sustainably, not just successfully. So all that I'm talking about is at policy level. There's also a need to educate consumers about the importance of patroning local products without sacrificing the quality. And so you need to have a competition policy. You need to have quality and standards in place. And you need to develop these at a pace that allows you to build one floor at a time. And so I guess what I'm trying to do is that many of the economies in Africa have decided to move from one policy to the other without looking carefully into the consequences of building that. And at the same time, globalization has affected us by providing cheaper alternatives for the products in local markets. Keep in mind that no particular country can produce everything by itself. So it has to be a complementarity. You have to be producing some and exporting it, and in return you have to be importing some. And that allows you to grow in a certain pace. So where does that leave us? Currently, let's take it in Ghana, for example. What do we have? What are the elements or the components that we have that would allow us to look at how to build our economies in a more transformative way, in a step-by-step approach? You might be aware, for example, that recently the National Coordination Office of the AFCFTA has launched a national policy about how we wanted to implement the AFCFTA in Ghana, and how to target specific value chains and how to target specific areas, so that we will manage to take opportunity of the continental market, which we hope that it will open up the African market of 1.4 billion people to Ghanaian products, while looking at the areas where we can compete best at, and then improving these so that our products in these areas can be more competitive against our other African manufactured goods and services in the African economy. We also have something that was also officially inaugurated a few months ago, which is the National Export Development Strategy, which has specified the areas where Ghana as a government is going to focus on particular value chains and particular products. Lastly, we have, apart from the National Export Development and the AFTA Development Strategy, we also have something that was recently launched, which is the tree crop development strategy, a long-term plan to develop certain tree crops in Ghana in order to make sure that we add value to our products locally, to build our economies, to diversify our economies, to create jobs in the economy, and to make it more sustainable, to depend less on imported products. So all of these are there, but we need to make sure that we enforce it in a way that allows us to create opportunities and unlock opportunities instead of limiting ourselves in certain areas and opening up our markets to competition from outside to better us. So we have to look at where we can compete. We have to address the areas where we can compete less so that we create a favorable environment for our local products. Where we cannot, we have to admit that these are areas where we cannot at the moment target, so we need to be depending on importing it from a neighboring country, whether from Africa or beyond. And we have to continue with our drive to invest more into building, into connecting basically our markets from the production areas to the consumption areas. And these are all huge tasks. I mean, one lesson that we can take from what's going on currently around the world with the shocks, the external shocks that are amplified or that are experiencing amplified effects in Ghana and in other African countries, is that we are not connected enough among ourselves. Whether because we have low infrastructure or because we lack the right enabling policies to grow into the economies that we wish. we still have a lot of work cut out for us, and the road is long.
Oh, okay. So from where you sit as an industry player, do you think Ghana is ready to adapt all these policies so that we can reduce importation of goods and do more of the export?
I think the political will and the leadership has a vision, a long-term vision about how to transform the economy from the state where we are at the moment to a better state, to a more sustainable state. The real challenge is with the implementation of some of these strategies. You know, when you strategize and you look into the longer term, you should have plans for the shorter term, plans for the medium term, and plans for the longer term. And sometimes you need to prepare contingency plans in case something happens, how to address certain areas. And it's not that easy to enforce the vision of the high-level leadership of a particular country. There are several layers of policy making and policy engagements and enforcement of regulations and rules and laws. There are so many commitments that have to be measured about where you stand in international trade versus where you want to go. And there are certain ways where you can go about certain things. And eventually, the dynamics of democracy force you to engage on a political scene with people who do not necessarily share the same views. It makes it difficult to push in the same direction. And all of this is on a national level. Now think of it on a regional level where you have 15 countries that have the same dynamics, which are trying to move together in one direction. And so you can start to appreciate why our regional integration has been faltering, haven't been moving at the same pace what we want to. Because regional integration is about the common management of the resources and the information and the people in a particular area by looking at the laws and the regulations that manage these flows. So, and at the continental level, you have to manage the RECs, which make up this continent, and this makes it even more complicated. So it's not that easy to move through with the implementation or the enforcement of a long-term plan of the leadership of a particular country, but then no one country is an island. Yeah. We have to know one of the main lessons, apart from the external shocks that are currently plaguing the world, is that no one country is an island, and that as one we can move together. But as alone, you can't move that far. So it's a bit complicated, you know, but personally I have faith in the long-term vision of Ghana, and I see a light at the end of the tunnel, even though today, if we look at what has been going on over the past few weeks, and the challenges that still wait for us over the next weeks as we negotiate our way to a more sustainable economic development. But you still know that the economy has the right fundamentals. We have the resources, we have the people, we have the vision, and we have the tools that would allow us to move forward in the right direction. But what's important is to make sure that all of this moves together and that it moves in the right direction.
Great. Anytime you visit our various markets, imported goods have dominated the space, and some Ghanaians are really happy about imported goods, neglecting our own locally produced. After the break, we'll get to find out how this is having impact on our economy as a country. We're taking a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hello, my name is Clay Crane. 2023 is with us, and I would like to take the opportunity to wish all a safe and happy New Year. APM Terminals Liberia has, over the years, been a leader in port operations in Liberia. Together with our partners, we have continuously invested in cutting-edge technology to modernize the Freeport of Monrovia to fulfill its mandate as the gateway of the Liberian economy. This year, we are poised to accelerate this vision.
So we are going to contribute to accelerating the vision in 2023 by improving the already good outcomes of our port digitization to give our customers, our users, and staff a better experience by collaborating with our external stakeholders.
In accelerating the vision in 2023,
We will keep the customer at the center and at the heart of what we do.
We are always developing our people here at APM Terminals Liberia by equipping them with the needed knowledge, skills, and exposure. They will be empowered to deliver more as we accelerate our vision this year.
APM Terminals Liberia continue to perform well in health and safety thanks to our continuous adaptation to ways of working and safer handling of cargo. We have recorded 0 fatality in 2022. 2023, we're going to continue to accelerate our vision for safety to ensure that we are safer, bigger, and better.
At APM Terminals Liberia, operations demand efficiency. There is a renewed sense of enthusiasm amongst the team. Everyone is aware of how critical our work is with regards to accelerating the vision of APM Terminals.
Happy New Year and welcome to the year 2023. We are aware of the global economic challenges, but we want to take this opportunity to assure our staff and our stakeholders that APM Terminals Liberia will put in the right investments in support of our bigger, better, and safer global operations to allow for the greater economic growth and prosperity of Mama Liberia.
We are committed to continuous quality service to our stakeholders, partners, and agencies here in Liberia.
Welcome back from that very quick break. If you just joined us, you are watching Ports and Maritime Agenda, and Mr. Ziad Hamoui, who is Executive Director of Tarzan Enterprise Limited and a trade advocate, is our guest on Ports and Maritime Agenda. So, Mr. Ziad, before the break, I made mention that Ghanaians like imported goods more than the locally produced goods. To what effect is this having on the economy?
So here's the thing. I partially agree with your statement, and I think that is one of the main fundamental issues that we need to work on changing, because we need to patronize local products, but at the same time we don't have to force the patronage of local products at the expense of the quality. So if your local products are high quality, it will help to encourage patronage and consumption locally, but then it will create the markets to allow the product to even become better quality, right? But if you have something that is not up to a certain standard, then you might as well encourage people to patron the local products, but then it will not get you anywhere because your market will still be small enough. Now, you might be a local manufacturer or producer who is just looking at producing just barely for your local areas, or for your local communities, or for a particular region or city. And you might not be necessarily, because you can produce for export, but not all producers are exporters, right? So some are smaller scale and some are larger scale. However, that is part of the problem. The other part is that not all imported goods are better quality than the products that you have locally. And this is no longer a product quality issue. This has to do with packaging and marketing. I was in Durban in 2023 last year, in 2021 in November. And I saw the queues of the people who were lining up to taste Ghanaian chocolates, Ghanaian peanut butter, and to try and to sample some of the beauty products, shea products here. Very long queues. Even some alcoholic beverages. People were just queuing up just because they couldn't believe that this is a locally manufactured product from Ghana. And we were talking about South Africa. South Africa is a well-developed and known for the quality of its products. So it made me conclude that we do not advertise our local products efficiently. What do I mean? I mean that somehow a large fraction of people believe that a local product is a low-quality product. And it means that whoever is producing a local product does not take the effort to test drive his product in the market to find out whether it is appealing or it is adequately liked by the local markets. And I think that many of the products which are made in Ghana, which are exported outside of Ghana, can actually prove can hold their ground against many of the international products that you find in the markets. Now, so that is one thing, perception. whether the local product is better than the exported one or not. Now it comes to the price. Pricing and costing of manufacturing and production has to do with the economies of scale and the technologies which you use to manufacture a good or a service. And it helps to have a larger market so that you can lower your cost of production across a larger production. So that is why you find out that the current goods that flood the markets elsewhere across the world are coming from a smaller number of countries that produce in much larger quantities. And these quantities end up flooding the markets, but not necessarily with a better quality of products. So I think it's a complicated issue. It has its merits. Some international products do have superior quality, and unfortunately, some of them also have very competitive prices. But that doesn't mean that by conclusion, we need to create a culture where the local product is the cheaper quality product and the more expensive product. We need to accept the fact that in order to develop our economies, we need to be prepared to pay a small premium on our local goods and services over equally available imported goods and products. So if a product is coming from Benin or from South Africa or from China and sells for cheaper in Ghana, you should be prepared to pay a smaller premium to support your local manufacturing and production. But you shouldn't take that for granted. You shouldn't say, oh, I'm producing poultry, Ghanaian corn, I'm producing something, I'm producing shea, so people should stop importing shea and you should just buy my Ghana product, but it's more expensive, so you're going to pay double the price. So that's not a good marketing proposal, so to say. So there's marketing, there's pricing, and then there's perception. And all of these, we need to tackle them at the right levels by educating the consumers, by working on the availability of our products in the local markets, and then also by enhancing our local products with their labels, with the packages, with the product itself, and with the description, and sometimes with the advertising of our products. It is sad that most companies, when they find themselves in challenging times and they have to prioritize their resources and their budgets, the first item that they cut off from their budget is the marketing and advertising. And this goes against the company itself, because now you don't market enough, people don't know you exist, don't know your products, don't know your depth, so you sell less and less, and then it becomes a vicious circle. And so I think that we can strive to build, or to actually to look at changing the mindset of our local producers from the perception of our local products versus the international products. I think it's possible.
Okay, changing the perception of our locally produced products. We all know imports cannot be restricted, and we are all urging using our country, for instance, that we should get involved and then take up with locally produced goods. How do we get the people involved? Is it through the education, or there should be a strict implementation as well?
So there are agencies which need to enforce the current rules and regulations. And that is where we have a gray area where some of the rules and the regulations are being bent or twisted or disregarded at the moment to the disadvantage of the local consumers and even to the producers. I don't want to enter into some of the details, but let's give an example about a certain case study with regards to, for example, the benchmark values in Ghana here from last year up to here. Or was it from 2 years today? So over the past few years, the benchmark value was introduced in order to help reduce the cost of importation of certain products. After engagement with the particular organized private associations on behalf of the local manufacturers and producers, I have expected that we will come to a point where some of the products where Ghana has local manufacturing and production base will be protected in a way that if you are importing from these products, you don't